Early in 1998, we were a young couple, and my wife was pregnant with our first child. And we didn't have a car. So as the pregnancy progressed, it became a bit more difficult for her to be able to move around without a car. And so one morning, while she was getting ready to go to work, I was on call that day, so I was to resume at probably about 2 p.m. She called me and sat by me and said, Dad, when are we going to buy a car? But she knew that I'd always been a very optimistic young man. So I told her, don't worry, very soon God will do it. I'm sure God will do it very soon. And then she asked me a most disturbing question that sent me spiraling down and thinking very deeply after she left home. She looked at me and said, when? Because I couldn't answer that question, the two of us shared a few tears. And I said, I really don't know when, Foluke, but I know God will do it. And I hope He will do it soon. So on that note, I still consoled her a bit because I knew the difficulty we were having because of where we're living. It was a bit difficult for her to move around. So she left for work. That day, by some stroke of good fortune, I met a man, story for another day, who was ready to give me a car, but I'll pay parts. Because what we had wasn't enough. So he allowed us to be able to pay parts, and then I'll be paying the remaining monthly. He told me, in fairness, that he went to Kano to bring that car, and the money I was paying, he was sending to the owner of the car in Kano. So suddenly, we had a car. We were happy. We seemed like a successful young couple, and everything seemed to be going well. Then, we had our baby. And a few days before the naming comes up 7 days after delivery, I suddenly got news that the owner of the car from Kano had sent the name and number of the car to road safety and so many other agencies, that anywhere they saw that car, they must stop it and impound it because the person who bought the car had defaulted. I was shocked. I hadn't defaulted. I was regularly paying this man, whom I used to see almost every other week because we worked close to my hospital. And then I found out that after the bulk money that I paid to this man, every other instrumental payment I had made, he did not remit to Kano. He did not remit to the owner of the car. He consumed it all by himself. So then I was in crisis. My wife had just had a baby. The car I had used to bring them from the hospital home, the car I was using to do a boy, that people respected me, that this young man and his wife are doing quite well, was about to be taken away. And I didn't know where the police would be or road safety. So I was even afraid to drive out. And then I was worried. How do I tell my wife this? How do I handle this? What kind of level of shame and embarrassment was going to come to me when this happened, if the car was impounded? So I remember walking out of the room and sitting on the veranda. And I thought, and I was overwhelmed by pain, fear, grief, shame. And I didn't know where to turn to. But suddenly, a thought came to my heart. And with that thought, I suddenly found courage and boldness again. And my face became brighter. And I left that veranda and went back into the room to my wife and kid to discuss with her what was going on. What came to my mind that gave me the strength? I consider myself to be a privileged person. Why? Because I've been privileged to taste, touch, feel, and handle all forms, fashions, formats, and flavors of failure. Oh, I've seen failure. In different ways, different packages. I've had to deal with it and live with it. Especially in my undergraduate days. It was tough. It was painful. It was embarrassing. It was shameful. There were times that I failed and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't explain. No one could explain it. I remember a particular episode. I had just had a very painful failure. One of those kinds of failures with a different peppery flavor. And I was walking back home to my hostel, dejected. And a friend of mine, well, a classmate of mine at that time, with whom we had a very civil relationship, Bumi Shamo, just met me on the road and asked me, Daddy, how was the result? And when I told her I failed, she felt so much for me that in silence, she just walked with me to my destination, saying nothing. She was just walking with me. And I was in my mind thinking, how am I going to cope with this again? What am I going to do? I remember that when people were coming to my room and going out to console with me and all that, she just sat through it. She just sat there looking at me. And the only thing I think I remember her saying was, Dale, How do you survive these things? That I know that God can't even try me with 1/10 of this kind of thing. I would have died. How do you cope? I really didn't have an answer, although I believed I had help from above to strengthen me. One lesson I learned at that time, though, was this. I wasn't ready to lose two ways. If I had failed or had gone through a disappointment, I needed to learn a lesson from it. I believe that if I could take away a lesson from any bad occurrence I went through, then I would not have lost all things. I would have lost something, but I would also have gained something, instead of losing one way and losing the other way. And that was the way I kept dealing with very many different types of pains and disappointments that came my way. These experiences, these skills I learned over the years have become very useful to me after graduation. In life, I have had to deal with so many disappointments, so many business failures, betrayals, upsets, embrace of lack and want at different points in my life. But each time I hit those points, I could always go back into the armory of my emotions and skills that I learned when I was dealing with failure in my undergraduate days. And every time it came up, it always helped me. Why? Because I knew that I had survived these things before, I will survive it again. So that was what came to my mind when the whole thought of my car being impounded, the embarrassment and the shame was almost overwhelming me. I simply told myself, I've survived shame before, I've survived failure before, I've survived lack before, I'll survive this one. I'll only need to tell my wife. Fortunately, all those times that I survived those failures and pains back in undergraduate days, she was with me. So she understood what I had gone through. So please, it's important that we do not lose too much if we have lost something. No matter what the situation is, there can be something to learn from what has happened. It's important that you seek out what to learn. You seek out a gain from this pain. That way you will not have lost both ways. Pepper can be sweet sometimes if you actually can tune your taste properly. Because life is not always going to be smooth and easy. Successes will come, sometimes failures will come. But it is not their coming that's the issue. It is how you receive them and deal with them. Strengthen your heart. Don't give up just because things have gone awry or sad, or you failed, or things are not going your way. There's always another day. There's always another tomorrow. There's always a way to manage so that you will learn something and make a gain from this pain. Really, hot pepper can be sweet sometimes.